All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the May 9th, 2024 biannual meeting of the Alabama Emergency Response Commission. My name is Caleb Williams. I am the LEPC and CERC coordinator for Alabama Emergency Management Agency. So once again, I want to welcome you to the meeting. I'll go ahead and give a little forewarning to everyone on the call. AEMA is dealing with some response activities from the weather last night into today and tomorrow. So there's a chance that those of us who are with EMA will occasionally have to step out off the call, and if so, we will let y'all know, and we will adjust as necessary. First off, I want to turn over to Beth and Grady at ADM, see if they have any welcome comments before we get started.
Hey, thanks, Caleb. I'll just say, yeah, we are obviously, as Caleb said, dealing with some weather this morning. We are here in Central Alabama under tornado watch 4 p.m. I know North Alabama and most of the state is under a tornado watch as well. So if anybody has to step away, that's fine. The only housekeeping note I'll mention is just, per the norm to keep down background noise is if you are not actively speaking, please go ahead and mute your microphone.
Hey, this is Beth with ADM. Just for everyone in chat, since we are doing this remotely, please be sure to list your name and the organization that you're with in the chat box so that we can keep up with everyone who's here for attendance purposes. And we'll remind everyone about halfway through for those that join in later. And with that, Caleb, if you want to, here's the agenda for today. We're going to start with Caleb, and he's going to do his LEPC update.
Thank you, Beth. Yeah, so let's start with the LEPC update as everyone continues to sign in chat for the meeting. Go ahead and get started with this. Like I said earlier, I'm the LEPC and CERC coordinator for Alabama EMA. My primary role day to day is to coordinate with the counties and the division coordinators with the EMA to see what we can do to support and improve LEPC activities throughout the state. And that includes encouraging counties to further activate their LEPCs if they are not already. This last calendar year, we had a lot of forward progress with the program, which is good. When I first got position, we were in a bit of a dry phase. We were starting to really try to get it picked up, and it looks like LEPC's got a lot of forward momentum in the state. Seems like counties are really starting to talk to each other about the importance of it, and we're starting to see a lot better activity with it. So with that being said, we will start with the introduction. So for those of you who are maybe not familiar, the LEPC is a local emergency planning committee, and these are local entities that include emergency planners, emergency responders. They include industry partners. They include elected officials, and even everyday civilians who come together to discuss, plan, and consider the hazards that are included with the chemicals in their area. These LEPCs, they are federally mandated by Title III of the Superfund Amendment and Reauthorization Act, also known as Federal Title III, which also is known as EPCRA, the Emergency Planning Community Right to Know Act. By federal law, every state is required to have LEPCs, which are just ongoing communities and meetings about these hazards. Now, state of Alabama and Alabama Emergency Response Commission charges the counties and Native American tribes with that responsibility. We do not do this job for the county. We allow the counties to do this as they see fit. In the state of Alabama, as of today, we have 67 counties and one federally recognized tribal authority, and that is, of course, the Porch Band of Creek Indians down in South Alabama. For the purposes of describing our LEPCs, which will become a little more evident in the next slide, we use 3 status levels. We have active, inactive, and reorganizing. As you can see here, active is mostly just regular scheduled meetings. They keep minutes, they have exercises, they're submitting their emergency response plans. Inactive, they are not doing those things. Now, when we say inactive, We don't say that the LEPC doesn't exist because generally those same activities are being performed by the county EMA themselves, but it's not being done in the LEPC forum. And then reorganizing, that's any county or authority, whether that's multiple counties, a tribal authority that is just redoing the way they do LEPC, whether that's rewriting bylaws, whether that's re-electing new leadership and changing the structure of their meetings. They're just redoing everything. And we have several counties doing that at this very moment. So we can go to the next slide, Beth. There we go. Awesome. I didn't realize I had control. Perfect. Every year, starting now with me, the Emergency Response Commission conducts a full survey of every county and the Porch Creek Abandoned Indians to gather an update on the status of their LAPC going into that next calendar year starting January 1st. I generally start the survey October 1, and I email every either listed point of contact or county director if we don't have a point of contact. And with it's usually a list of 8 to 9 questions, give or take, that asks about their status, how often they meet, have they just submitted their emergency response plan, are they going over it as we speak, have they held an exercise, that kind of thing. This last year we redid how we did it, where we allowed we asked the division coordinators over here at Alabama EMA to assist us with that, since they have that ongoing face-to-face relationship with the county directors. As you see here, these are the results of the 2023 survey. You can see we have 39 active LAPCs, which is 3 more than we had in 2022. We did unfortunately lose 4 LAPCs. We went from 19 inactive to 23 LAPCs, but we're working with those counties to see what we can do to support them. And then reorganizing LAPCs, I actually forgot to put the new number, and I think that was just an oversight, but we did gain several more counties that are reorganizing theirs. So we're hoping to get into that 45 to maybe even 50 county active range by this time next year. So we're really getting a lot of forward momentum on that. And with that, that is a short presentation. So any questions from the room, and I will answer them as they come.
Hey, Caleb, I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
So you mentioned that you actually have more counties that are having their LAPCs become active, but I think you said you had 4 that had gone inactive or stepped back.
Yes,
So
sir.
do they notify you and say we are no longer having an LAPC, or is it just kind of you don't get correspondence? How's that process work? I mean, they come in and actually say, hey, we're no longer doing LAPC for the county.
Some counties will. Other times you'll find out during the survey, and they may have gone inactive in March, and you won't find out till November. It really is on a case by case basis. And a lot of times it's usually just they don't have the support in their county, and a lot of times it's not county EMA, it's not commission. A lot of times it's industries that maybe don't have interest in coming to meetings. And if I'm being fully honest, the LEPC is majority is the industry, because that's where most of the chemicals are going to be. And when the industries aren't showing up, it's very difficult to properly do an LEPC. So that's really the biggest thing. Is it's just like you said, we prefer to find out when it happens, but sometimes we don't, and we just roll with the punches.
Gotcha.
Any other questions?
Hi, this is Kason Cohen with Radiation Control. You mentioned the one tribal authority. Would they fall under the county LEPC, or would they have their own participant or their own commission?
The Porch Creek Abandoned Indians, since they are federally recognized, they fall completely under their own purview. We don't have any jurisdiction over them of any kind. We survey them since they are within the state, lines, but their tribal emergency planning committee is its own entity, separate from the county that they reside in. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I got one more question for you, Caleb, and I actually
All right.
asked this because I was part of an LEPC meeting yesterday.
Okay.
And the one conversation they have, and it seems to be a fairly common one, is how do they draw industry in? And they had even mentioned doing some things, they sending out a letter to their tier 2 facilities within the county, visiting in person, and they had even mentioned, did the LEPC have the ability to pass a bylaw within their own LEPC that mandates that that facility is part of that participates in that LEPC. And they even they asked the state, asked me, is that something they can do? I don't think it is something they can do, but just on that part of working with industry to become part of that LEPC, do y'all have any training in place for the LEPCs? I mean, I know that's it's a hard thing to pull that off sometime, but just getting industry involved. But is there any formal training, or is there something we can be looked at for LEPCs?
There's no formal training, and I think part of that is because we have charged the counties with LEPC. I guess that also means that we've stepped out of that maintenance role on both sides of it. However, 2 weeks ago, I attended the NASPO conference, the National Association of Sarah Title III program officials. I attended the conference in Charlotte, and one of the section, one of the presentations was actually about enforcement and getting industries to come to meetings and comply with tier 2 reporting. And one of the big issues that they had was that the industries would talk to each other, but they would not talk to the county or the state. So in a conversation I had with Tom Tyler, I suggested use your existing industry partners who are coming as that liaison. Let them initiate that conversation, because generally industry partners, they're going to trust their own, right? Industries are going to trust industries. Government's going to trust government. Or we're working on bridging that gap where industries and governments can trust each other. So my advice would be, and I can put an email out to all LEPC coordinators in the state. But my advice would be start that conversation with industry partners, because industry partners speak the same language. And I one of the things I've heard from people in that industry side, even in a county like Limestone, which is a big county when it comes to tier 2 and LEPC, is when the LEPC and the county EMA comes knocking, first thing they think is compliance and enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a scary thought, because the first thing that's going to go to your head is and it's not universal, but I've heard it a lot. Is first thing we've heard is we're going to either get fined or we're going to go to jail, because they think they've done something wrong. And in reality, it's just a conversation that we're trying to just have an open dialogue. Now, you are correct, Grady, and I did do some research into it. There is no enforcement mechanism in the state of Alabama. County LEPC can send all the invoices to industries for fines and whatever. But at the end of the day, the EPA, for our state anyways, the EPA is the enforcing agency when it comes to tier 2 and LEPC. And while we don't get any enforcement thing when it comes to LEPC from them, but tier 2 for sure they will, and they'll knock down doors if they have to. But yeah, so I'd say that just start with the industries and let them lead the conversation, and then allow that to bridge the gap into the meeting.
Yes.
Hey, Caleb, Grady.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Casey Rice. I am industry and I am LEPC. I'm the chair of the Tuscaloosa County LEPC, and I'm also just a regular old environmental engineer for Nucor Tuscaloosa.
Hey, Casey.
We have the Tuscaloosa County LEPC has done a lunch and learn every or the last 2 years. Sometime late in the fall, as people are starting to think about doing their tier 2. We've done kind of a little lunch and learn. We had, I think the first time we did it, we maybe had 15 folks come in from industry, and we got in people that had never even come to our semi-annual meeting through that. And this year, our participation was a little lower, but we still, had a couple of new faces. And just from those two experiences, we've already got ideas of how we want to change it next year to make it be a little bit more helpful. And we've approached it as, and it helps that I come from industry and I kind of understand the LEPC. So I think I'm a little biased. But we've kind of always just been very transparent to all of our membership and said, hey, we are here as a resource for you. The reason that we want you people to come to our meetings is because we want to help you. We want to protect you. I have heard, I definitely agree with you, Caleb, that your bylaws, a county's bylaws cannot require an industry to do anything. But I have seen and heard of court cases where if there is an emergency at an industry in a county, the EPA is going to ask, when was the last time this industry attended an LEPC meeting? And they are going to want to see sign-in sheets proving if that industry had attended or not. If nothing else, come sit in a meeting for 1 hour every year, have a free lunch, and you're covered and you're involved, right? At least then that LEPC has a name and a phone number, a contact at that industry. We have, as the Tuscaloosa County LEPC, we have these lofty dreams of reaching out individually to our tier 2 facilities and just making that connection and just being a friendly voice saying, hey, come join us. But everybody's so busy and we all wear so many hats that we just haven't been able to take the time that we want to.
Yeah, very true, Casey. Thanks for putting that out. And the Tuscaloosa County does have and always has had a very strong LEPC. So they are, they've tried a lot of things and have figured out a lot of things that work. So thanks for adding that.
All right. Any other questions? And Casey, I do want to say I did appreciate those comments. And I have seen the flyers for y'all's lunch and learns. So, and I've always found them very intriguing. So, all right.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right. Well, hearing none, that will complete my portion of the agenda. Next up on the agenda, we have Debbie Link, who's our grant coordinator here at Alabama EMA, and she's going to give an update on the hazardous materials emergency preparedness grant, so that all y'all can have some of the new information that has come out for the grant this year.
So Deborah is actually not able to do her presentation today because she's in that activation call right now.
Okay.
She did send me an email with a list of bullet points that she wanted me to share with the group, and I'm going to read those to you all now. She said that the program had updated federal guidance for HMEP that came out about a year ago. In the guidance, US DOT emphasizes that the funding cannot be used for operational expenses for any organization. They also emphasize that the funding can be used for planning, training, and exercise activities and costs related to hazmat transportation. Some unallowable expenses are active shooter training, mobile meth lab training, courses not related to hazmat emergency response, WMD or terrorism training or courses. The local level application period is now open and is open until June the 30th. Funding awarded for any applications approved is for the fiscal or filing year 25 timeframe. And so if you have any questions about HMEP grants, the program, how it works, Deborah's contact information is up on the screen right now. I pulled that from her signature and added it to the slide. So you can reach out to her at any time for any HMEP related questions. With that, we're going to move on to Grady. He's going to give his ER and RRT update.
Thanks, Beth. You can go ahead and forward. And this is for our emergency response program update. And I just wanted to put this map in here first in case it's been a while since you've seen it or you've never seen it. But we do have 4 field offices statewide. Decatur, Birmingham, Montgomery, and Mobile, each one being responsible for their own particular area of the state. So when I say our emergency response program statewide, this is what we're referring to, and you can advance it. These are updated numbers. Now these are for the last 2 quarters, essentially October through April. And we had a total of 221 release notifications. And this could be anything from hazardous materials to oil spills. And ADEM as an agency, we have responded to 50 of those. When I say responded, that means in person, on site, working with the responsible party or the first responders. As you can see here, it's pretty typical. Our largest impacts are always going to be to land notifications, which is about 89%. That's pretty common. And generally, that's going to be your transportation incidents, some rail incidents and things there. But that's pretty common with what we always see. We did have one response, one release that we consider significant. It did involve EPA assistance, and even in this case, some U.S. federal USSF for federal wildlife. And that was a tanker rollover that happened in Birmingham on March 2nd. It was a tanker truck that was carrying 7,900 gallons of fuel and diesel, was a mixed cargo. This truck overturned on Interstate 59, and when it overturned, it was in close proximity to a bridge which crossed Village Creek. And we had about 1,900 gallons of that total capacity of the tank was released to the soil and made its way into the creek. This resulted in a fish kill. Once it entered the creek, it did spread down the creek a good ways. I don't have the exact length, but it was ways. And this is a few pictures here. This is essentially your top left, your rollover of the tanker, and you can see there, this is Village Creek, right about where the bridge crossed. It's a little more of a ditch at this point, concreted, but it does actually turn into a creek. You can see here the fuel, that rainbow sheen that is there. You can go to the next slide, Bill. Here you can see a couple of pictures of the fish kill I was referring to. One thing I will mention with this is that the reason U.S. Fish and Wildlife got involved is because a few of the species of fish that were impacted or were mortality in this spill were endangered species in Alabama, specifically the endangered darter. And this is a couple of pictures of that fish kill. So this remediation, as I said, EPA was on site working with ADEM as well as the local and the responsible party. And they collected and recovered about 8,600 gallons of impacted oil and water that had to be disposed of. And they also removed over 360 tons of soil-laden or fuel-laden soil. And these, of course, had to be excavated and disposed of as well. This entire remediation process, as I said, the spill occurred on March 2nd, and it was completed on March 29th. So it was just short of a month from cradle to grave for this entire cleanup of this spill, this release. It is still ongoing with U.S. Fish and Wildlife and ADCNR as well as to if there will be any, if they will pose any fines or anything like that. They're currently actively investigating that portion of it. You can bump ahead to the, there you go. And we did have a second incident involving U.S. EPA where we had to seek some federal assistance. This was for 2 orphan 250-gallon oil totes. These were waste oil totes. And what we assumed happened is that there was a tractor trailer was traversing through Marshall County and New Hope, Marshall County, and lost 2 of these totes off the back of the truck. The two totes were found on the side of the road, and oil had been spread up and down the roadway as well as drained off on the shoulder of the road. So we assumed they fell off the back of the truck, and the truck just continued wherever it was headed to. We did not have a responsible party for this. We did not have a entity to link it back to for cleanup. So we essentially had this oil that had to be removed with really no funding in place to do it. As I've mentioned several times before, emergency response program from ADEM does not have a funding mechanism for cleanup. So we have to get a little bit creative or reach out to the federal level with that. So EPA did assist. They did rely on scene with some of their assets, and they worked closely with ADEM and ALDOT to remediate this oil and get it up off the road. And that on-site remediation was concluded on April 11th. So again, quite a lengthy cleanup process. As I said, this incident occurred on March 25th and took about 3 weeks for we could get that handled. And you can forward. And updating the regional response team, the RT4 meeting is coming up at the end of this month. It will be in Gautier, Mississippi on May 28th and the 30th. And I have not, I'm still waiting on the final agenda to really understand what some of the push will be, but I do know they will be having another regional level CERC meeting. So essentially that will be the southern regional states will be involved in that CERC meeting. It's a good chance to come together as states and kind of discuss some issues each state may be having with CERC and some of the benefits and maybe some of the things that are working good for each state that we can share and bounce off each other. The last RRT meeting, I'll just mention this, was held the last week in October of 2023. And while there were a lot of good case studies there, one thing that was very forefront during that meeting, and we're starting to see more of it within the RRT, is how to respond to lithium batteries and EV vehicles, EV fires, and just the instability of those lithium ion batteries. So they did dedicate almost a full day of the meeting to a workshop just on some of the issues with lithium ion batteries, some of the things that have been learned to this point, and how to respond to them. The problem with these batteries, as you may know, is that as long as they hold any charge in them, even what's considered a dead or spent battery still has some charge. And as long as they still have that charge, or if they become damaged in some way, they are always a threat for thermal runaway, where they essentially self-ignite. You can extinguish them, and they may ignite again 5 minutes later, 5 days later. So really the only way they found the safest way to ensure that it's no longer a hazard is to completely denature and denegatize the battery. And there are certain ways to do that, which they covered. I won't get into that here, but it is still an evolving practice. EPA, as well as several other agencies, still working to try to determine the best ways to handle this. It's a situation where I think industry or let me not say industry, but where technology has kind of outpaced the response to it. So I expect to see some more of that at this upcoming RRT meeting, and we'll relay that. And if anybody wants any information on that, I will tell you the RRT does post all workshop material and all of their presentations on the RRT website at US EPA. You can find it. So if you have any questions or just interested in what those presentations were, feel free to reach out and look at those. And pending any questions, that is my update.
All right. Thank you, Grady. All right. Next up on our agenda, we have Beth Donaldson, who's served Title III coordinator at ADEM, Alabama Department of Environmental Management, and she will be giving an update on the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act, also known as EPCRA.
Hey, so since we're going to do a regulatory update in a little bit, I wanted to take some time to go over the regulatory history of the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act. So this starts all the way back in 1976 with the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, also known as RCRA, which established controls over hazardous waste from generation to disposal. And then as a part of that program, there was the Toxic Substance Control Act, TSCA, which provides EPA the authority to make controls on toxic chemicals. At that time, chemical pollution was rampant across the U.S. They would dump chemicals into rivers and streams. And the picture up there on the top left is the Cuyahoga River in Ohio. And it was so polluted that it would catch on fire and burn for days at a time. So when after RCRA was passed, we had in 1980, we had the Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act, known as CERCLA. And it was also known as the Superfund. And this program addressed dangers of hazardous waste dumps and created a trust fund to finance emergency response. In the picture above the text box there for Love Canal, one of the most common examples of pollution at that time was the Love Canal disaster, where this chemical company was burying barrels of chemicals in the ground, and basically they covered it with dirt, and the school bought it for $1, and the children started getting rashes and getting sick, and all that chemicals started to float and leach out of the ground. And there was a bunch of political stuff that happened, but basically there was no one there to remediate that disaster. And so the EPA established CERCLA so that they could come in, remediate the site, and make it a safe neighborhood for the people living there again. In 1986, we had the Superfund Amendments and Reauthorization Act, known as SARA, also known as the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act, or EPCRA. And Title III of SARA focuses on emergency planning and community right to know. So underneath the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act, facilities that have hazardous chemicals on site that meet a certain threshold have to file hazardous chemical inventories to certain entities by March 1st of each year. For the 2023 filing season, we had 1,713 facilities that filed via Tier 2 Submit, and we had 2,066 which filed via ePlan, which is our online database, for a total of 3,779 Tier 2 facilities that filed across the state of Alabama for 2023. The regulatory update that I wanted to talk about has to do with the CERCLA update, and it also amends Section 304 of EPCRA for the emergency release procedures for chemicals. And so the EPA, on April 17th, 2024, the EPA administrator signed a final rule, designation of PFOA and PFOS and their salts and structural isomers as CERCLA hazardous substances. So PFOA is perfluorooctanoic acid, and PFOS is perfluorooctane sulfonic acid. And these chemicals are known as forever chemicals. They're in the environment for a long time. And so the EPA has decided that these two particular chemicals are exceptionally hazardous, and they now have a reporting threshold of 1 pound. The two links up on the screen are for additional reporting requirements and a question and answer fact section on the EPA's website. We're not going to dive that deep into it right now, but I did want to go over the basics of what this new rule means. So effective July 8th, 2024, if a release of a PFOA or PFOS or their salts or structural isomers occurs at a facility, and that release is 1 pound or more, then they have to contact the National Response Center, and they have to contact the Alabama Emergency Response Commission and their local emergency planning committee in the areas affected by the release. They would also then file a 30-day written follow-up notification and file that with the AERC and the LEPC. In the EPA's CERC-TURC newsletter, they announced a few weeks ago that the Emergency Response Guidebook is now available for 2024, and first responders and law enforcement can request hard copies of the book from their state coordinator. Our state coordinator is Laura Patterson at the Alabama Emergency Management Agency, and her contact information is at the bottom of the screen. Full PDFs of the ERG are available on the PHMSA website underneath the resource section, and I've added that link to the screen for your reference. The ERG also has a mobile app that's available on iOS and Android. That concludes the updates that I have for you today. My contact information is listed on the screen along with additional resources such as the ADEM Sarah Title III webpage, the ePlan login webpage, and then Cameo Data Manager, which is the other program that we use to manage the Tier 2 inventory reports. So do I have any questions at this time?
All right, hearing none, thank you much, Beth. We greatly appreciate it. All right, moving on to our new business. Today we have the privilege of having two wonderful speakers. We will start out from the Alabama Department of Public Health. We have Dr. John Warusko.
Good morning. I'm standing in for Jamie Durham, who was supposed to do this. I wasn't exactly sure what to talk about, except that just to give a general overview of who we are and how we respond to chemical incidents. So here we go. Hang on, let me change that just a second. There you go. All right, so we're the Alabama Department of Public Health. We are comprised of different bureaus underneath our department. As far as we have a clinical laboratory where in the event of a chemical event, the samples go to be are sent to for confirmation testing, or quite possibly actual test to find out what it is. So we also have personnel under we have a Bureau of Communicable Disease, which is where a lot of this work takes place out of, along with another, we call it our Center for Emergency Preparedness, and we work hand in hand with them. And so we do a lot of different things. As far as we also have a Bureau of Environmental Services that can be involved in some of these events, depending, but their primary is to go out and take care of other issues and across Alabama, ranging from something as benign as doing a food inspection at a restaurant, or it can be something a little bit more in the event of working with local municipalities to capture rabid animals and turn them in for testing. So we do get involved a fair amount with certain things. So I'm going to stop talking about that and let's really start talking more about. Oh, and one other thing is we are broken up into 8 separate districts around the state. So it was my understanding that y'all wanted to know how we would respond to a chemical event that we get notified of. So, oh, well, yeah, I did that. Okay. So in the event that we get notified, it would usually probably come through our Center for Emergency Preparedness. However, it doesn't always have to come through there. We do have another line. It's a 24-hour-a-day line that can sometimes gets used for that purpose, although all of those calls really should be coming through CEP. So what happens at that point is we've got a little flow chart that we go through, and how it would go is that CEP would contact the director. The director would start calling down his particular list of people, which involves, depending on which county it is, it would be dependent on which district emergency preparedness personnel respond. So in the case of something that would happen, let's say in Covington County, that would be the southeastern district that would respond. So at that point, as soon as the director is starting to call him, there's another call that goes out, and that call goes to me. And at that point, I am the one who starts calling down my list of names, which is the duty officer at the Bureau of Clinical Laboratories and the IDNO, which is the Infectious Diseases and Outbreaks contact here at our Bureau of Communicable Disease. I would contact them, and we would start getting all of our personnel going. And so typically, though, when we get a notification of a chemical spill or a chemical event of some type, there's other agencies involved. And one of those agencies is the 42nd CST, which is the chemical support team out of the National Guard. Usually they'll be on site if it's a big enough event. They'll be the ones that do the initial testing of the sample to make a opinion on it, and then they'll take a sample from that, or they'll take the entire sample, and then they'll send it through to our Bureau of Clinical Laboratories, who does the confirmatory testing at that point to either say yay or nay, this is what it is, or this is what it's not, depending on what the initial reports are. This can also happen from EMA through a hazmat team. A hazmat team can be on site. They can characterize a sample and then send it to the Bureau of Clinical Laboratories for further confirmatory testing or exclusion testing. So and then if there are any kind of, so while that's all going on, the emergency preparedness coordinators are out, should be at the site at that point and starting to gather information as to, has anybody been affected? If so, who? Start gathering up symptoms and signs and symptoms, and all of that gets fed back into our loops at that point. And where I come into it is I act as a subject matter expert and provide advice accordingly, depending on what the chemical is, or chemical or substance. It doesn't necessarily have to be a chemical. It can also be a biological substance. So that's where that comes in. And so that's how we typically respond to, and if we need to, we can also provide assistance to and advice to the EMS responders. That's another portion of our, that's, they fall under a different bureau than communicable disease. They're under a different, but we do provide EMS support and guidance as well. So, and then if it does contain a casualty event, then we also provide advice to the receiving emergency rooms, and we also provide, depending on the size of it, we can also coordinate with other hospitals to figure out, we keep what's known as a surge capacity list. What that means, it's the hospital send us a census on their space available, like how many beds are occupied and whatnot. and that allows us to calculate a surge capacity. So if a hospital is in danger of being overwhelmed by casualties, then we'll begin to start recommending that they split out to this hospital because they have X amount of surge capacity. So it used to be in the past that we could also provide some actual rolling stock to go out and provide medical needs. But I'm not exactly sure about what our status is on that anymore. I'm not. Last time I was out there, they still had it. So I don't know. Anyway, so that's essentially how we would respond by collecting data and providing support to all the other state agencies upon request. Oh, and that's the 46th Civil Support Team, not the 42nd. Sorry about that. So so I'm not exactly sure what else Jamie was going to cover on this. So at this point, it might just be best for you to ask me questions and I'll answer them. So does anybody have any questions at this point about how ADPH would respond in the event of a chemical or other type of situation?
Hey, John, I do have a question. And you know,
All right.
anytime I think about a hazmat that the CST or ADPH may respond to, I always immediately kind of think of an unknown material or some material being used for nefarious reasons. You know, I always want to go back to the anthrax scares we had in the early 2000s and things like that. So typically, is that the case? I mean, you know, if we had, let's say we had a chlorine release, which we would obviously respond to, that would not necessarily be something that ADPH or CST would respond to, or is it?
Well, when that chlorine spill happened down at the Ciba-Geigy plant in Mobile, or excuse me, not Mobile, Washington
Macintosh.
County at McIntosh, I think that was about 3 or 4 years ago. We did respond to that after the fact. What we can do in situations like that is one, we can provide expert or subject matter expertise on that as far as how to treat that. Although at the EMS and the plant EMS would probably have a good grasp on how to do that, but we would be there for that. But one of the other things we can do in that is we can follow up with our surveillance system on the hospitals, and we can figure out whether or not it was more than just the people affected at the time. We can look over a period of days to figure out if there's any follow-on effects in the community itself that need to be addressed. Like, so we do have capacity in that area to perform surveillance at hospitals and things like that. So we will respond to that if we're given notice of it. I mean, we are here to support the first responders in any way we can. Admittedly, I mean, it's in a situation of chlorine like that, it's an immediate effect and it dissipates rapidly because it gets dispersed by the wind and into the atmosphere. Plus, it's a highly reactive chemical and it's going to react with anything it comes into contact. According to some people that talked to me at ADEM, those trees, the pine trees that were going east into the wind, they got scalded pretty bad. So thank God it was just a tree. So so yeah, that's where we can come into that.
All right. Any other questions for Dr. Orozco? All right, hearing none. Thank you much. We appreciate that presentation. Appreciate that information.
Thank
All
you.
right, absolutely. All right, let's see here. All right, next up on our meeting agenda. From the Pipeline and Hazardous Material Safety Administration, we have Nee Sampa. And that presentation will start here in just a second.
All right. How's everybody doing today? Can I be heard?
Yes,
well,
I
we can hear you.
think we got you.
All right. How you doing today? Good, I hope.
Pretty good.
All right. Say it again.
Yeah, other than some weather, we're doing pretty good. Fingers crossed that
Weather,
won't become an
huh?
issue. Yeah.
Yeah, same thing over here. I'm from gloomy Baltimore City,
Uh,
giving you this presentation. That's right. Okay. I guess we can start right now. Hello, everybody. My name is Nyamate Sampa. I am well, everybody calls me Nee, so you can call me Nee. I'm here to give you, first, I'm here to give you an overview of PHMSA, an overview on our mission and how we serve the American public. I'm also here to familiarize you with PHMSA's outreach and engagement team, which I'm a part of, and give you the lowdown on what we're doing, what we have going on. Slide, please. Okay, as you already know, PHMSA is an acronym. It stands for Pipeline and Hazardous Material Safety Administration. It's a mouthful, so you just refer to it as PHMSA. Okay, as you see in the slide, PHMSA is one of the 12 agencies that fall under the United States Department of Transportation's umbrella. And as you can see right there in the lower right part of the slide, you see PHMSA. And you'll see two branches that branch off of PHMSA. They both have the same safety mission, but they have two different expertise. And it's self-explanatory. The first branch is on the Office of Hazardous Material Safety. And the next branch is the Office of Pipeline Safety. Slide, please. Okay, but right now we're gonna cover PHMSA's mission, PHMSA as a whole, our mission, and our mission is right there. And PHMSA develops and enforces regulations for the safe, reliable, and environmentally sound operation of the nation's 2.6 million mile pipeline transportation system and nearly 1 million daily shipments of hazardous materials by land, sea, and air. Slide, please. A continuation of PHMSA mission, we're going to show here how PHMSA interacts with its stakeholders. We conduct outreach. As you can see, we do trainings, we hold trainings. We have research and development. Let me elaborate on the research and development part. PHMSA conducts research and development to innovate and improve transportation safety policies, techniques, processes, and procedures. We also have regulations and standards, grants, and grants is a hot topic right now amongst us. So I'm gonna elaborate on that. Grants, PHMSA manages both pipeline safety grants and hazardous material grants to support inspections, enforcement, training, and outreach programs for all our stakeholders. That's in the states, the U.S. territories, nonprofits, and so on. And we have the inspection and enforcement part that we interact with our stakeholders and everyone knows about that, the enforcement part. And we have accident investigations. I'm gonna elaborate on this. PHMSA investigates pipeline failures and hazardous material accidents and incidents. For example, what happened in Baltimore, the bridge collapse. PHMSA will front and center to assist all our other sister agencies with that accident. Next slide, please. Now, let's go to the Office of Pipeline Safety, which is under PHMSA, which is in PHMSA, sorry. These are their focuses, as you can read on the slide, but I want to introduce three more focuses that they have, and they're very important. The inspection enforcement part, we know that, the damage prevention part, and the public education. Very important pieces that we can't miss. Next slide, please. Now let's move on to the Office of Hazardous Materials Safety, which I'm a part of. The OHMS, which is another name for it, supports PHMSA's mission by developing, proposing, and implementing regulatory policy and initiatives and regulations governing the safe and secure transportation of hazardous materials. As you can see, I put in the bold burst right there, packaging is everything for us. We make sure the labeling, the marking, and the placarding of the package that is holding the hazardous materials during transportation and commerce is in compliance with the 49 CFR, our overall regulation, sorry. And within the Office of Hazardous Materials, we have two sides of the house. We have the enforcement side, and everyone knows what the enforcement side is. That's, investigations, investigators coming to establishment, punitive actions. We understand all that part, and we have the outreach and engagement side of this branch, which I'm a part of, and I'm going to introduce you to my team, the outreach engagement team. Next slide, please. We have 5 regions that we cover: the Western, the Southern, the Central, the Eastern, and the Southwestern. All right. You can continue to click and get everybody's name in there. That's it. Yeah. And these are all my team members. Then we cover the whole United States. We have our director, Mr. Mark Nichols, of field outreach, and we have our chief, Mr. Clayton Hatfield, who's my boss, and they're the leaders of our team, and we cover the whole United States. Next slide, please. Now we're gonna go to our mission that we take very seriously. Is we increase awareness. And awareness of what? Hazardous material safety. And one of the hot topics right now, as I heard earlier, you guys were saying, is lithium-ion batteries, the disposal, storage, and transport of these batteries. Very important, hot topic right now, and forever will be probably. Community outreach events, we attend them, like what we're doing right now with the LEPCs and CERCs, and to spread the word of PHMSA. We introduce grants to all. We have a lot of grants to offer, and we introduce all those to our stakeholders. And we have focused workshops that are requested and that are needed by our stakeholders. We might see them and offer them to our stakeholders, such as trainings with shipping papers and things of that sort. Next slide, please. This is how we accomplish our missions. Like I said before, stakeholder requests through mass votes, multi-agency strike force operations. We attend conventions, and we do in-persons and virtual meetings like we're doing right now. We teach our stakeholders to use the 49 CFR hazardous material regulations. We teach them about shipping papers, the latest emergency response information, package selecting, the marking, labeling, and placarding of requirements for those packages, and our baby, the ERG, the Emergency Response Guidebook. We make that. That's our thing, PHMSA. It's unique to us, and we take it. And we're glad you brought it up. And we'll move on from there. Next slide, please. Underserved communities, another hot topic of ours. Underserved, and I like to say underinformed and underserved, but it's underserved communities. This includes the U.S. territories, like all the way out. We go as far out as American Samoa, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. These are all U.S. territories of ours that we cover. The tribal nations, we outreach to them too. I see you guys do also. The farm communities in Middle America, and so on and so forth. Next slide, please. Yes, this is how PHMSA is divvied up through the United States. And I just took the time to put each community liaison's name over what region they covering. But we all one team. If someone in the West can't handle something, I'm all the way in Baltimore and I can handle it, and we all come to that conclusion, I'll go over there and handle it for them. We're all one team. So you contact one of us, you're contacting all of us. So we're one entity. Next slide, please. All right, I'm coming to the conclusion of my presentation. This is me right here, all my particulars. And that QR code is my business card. So please take time to capture that with your phone, and don't be afraid to contact me. Give me your questions that you have, and if I can't answer them, I will get you to someone who can answer them. Most definitely, it's my job. And give some people some time to get that QR code if they want it. Next slide, please. All right, questions.
Hey, Nee, quick question going back to your area. I know you said you're in Baltimore. Are you in the region 4, or what region are you currently operating in?
Right now, I operate all over the United States. We don't usually have, me personally, I operate all over the United States. So I cover everything I can. That's my thing. But I work in the Eastern region whenever they need help, which is from Virginia all the way up to Maine.
Okay. Yeah, and the reason we've worked very closely
In
with
the
Liz
Eastern
Liddell.
region, yes.
Yeah,
Say that again?
Liz was always great.
Yeah.
So I was just curious. I know she is moved with taking another position. I didn't know if maybe you were her old role, or she's still in that role, and y'all kind of.
No, we have some people in the southern region right now, just as good. And Liz is she's still with us, so we all ask questions. We still one team, but I work primarily out of the Eastern region, but I'm everywhere.
Gotcha.
All right. Any other questions?
So Grady, if I may, real quick, we've got this is Clayton Hatfield, Chief of Field Outreach Engagement. We've got a new community liaison that has replaced Liz in Southern region. She has just come on board, so she's not fully on board yet enough to do this. So as Nee was saying, we all fill in the blanks whenever somebody needs something. So if there's a need for something between now and the time that Danita reaches out to you, Danita Ferrier is her name.
Yes.
Just feel free to reach out to Nee or myself, and we'll get you whatever you need. So we'll kind of take that place of Liz and get you what you need as she's moved on.
We'll do it. Thank you.
Appreciate your question. And thank you, Chief, for answering.
Not a question, but really just a comment. Back a couple of years ago, we had pretty much back-to-back pipeline incidents here in the state of Alabama, and it was a big help having PHMSA on site and on board doing the investigation and steering us as to what caused the incident. Was there any negligence on the part of the pipeline company and so forth like that? So it was a big benefit. We enjoyed working with you all, and hope we don't have to do it again. Nothing personal, but in the case we do get in that situation, it's nice to know that we've got this established relationship where we can work with you all and hopefully do what we need to do in that situation.
Well, I really appreciate that, Scott. Yes, I really appreciate that, Scott. We reach our stakeholders are everything to us. So we make sure we get out there and become a team and get the job done. That's our main objective. And to serve the American public, of course. Any other questions? Oh, well, if you do have any questions, you have my contacts, you have my email. I hope you got my business card. Feel free to contact me at any time. You contact me, you're contacting the whole team. Because if I don't know anything, I'll just go to the right person. So we all one entity. So please remember that. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Nee. We greatly appreciate it. All right, we will now move on to our agency roundtable. So first up, we'll go around the room. Does anyone have updates from their agencies that they would like to share with the room?
Hey Caleb, this is Debbie Blank. Can you hear me?
I can, yes, ma'am.
Did the information that I sent, was that already mentioned?
It was Beth walked us through it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you so much. I just want to make sure everybody had that information.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. All right. Anyone else in the update portion? All right. Well, hearing none, we'll move on to the next part, which is, does anyone know of any training events that they have heard of that would benefit those in the room and those who work with those in the room?
Hey, Caleb, this is Beth. I don't have the exact date, but the Chemical Security Summit with the I just forgot the acronym of the organization. There's a chemical security company that with CISA. It's with uh, the CISA group. They're going to be having,
absolutely.
it's like a 2-day virtual event that's over 2 days a week apart. I think it's like a Thursday and then the following Thursday. And it's really good for any chemical industry, any first responder that might be dealing with those types of industries. And I did send that to you, I believe, yesterday or the day before to send out to the LEPCs. So for the LAPCs on the call, that would be a great free opportunity to jump in on that chemical security summit, get some good information about chemicals. And I will be sure to include that date and the time on the minutes when we send out the minutes.
Awesome. Thank you much, Beth. Greatly appreciate it. And I did get that email. I haven't gotten it sent out just because of the weather and everything, but I will get that sent out later this afternoon once I'm back to my blue sky stuff. All right. Any other training that anyone knows about? All right. Well, hearing none, we will move into the closing comments. So Grady and Beth, I'll allow y'all to go first on that.
So one of the things where we're hoping to accomplish with the agency roundtable is that we really want to hear more from the agencies that are on the CERC and to give you the opportunity for your voice to be heard. So during the roundtable, if you have anything that's specific to your agency that you want to share, we encourage that in the future. We are going to maintain this segment, even though we don't get a lot of comments during it, but we're hoping that it fosters the sharing of information about your agency. So don't, feel free to chime in and share anything, even if you think it's small or it might not be significant. It doesn't have to pertain specifically to chemical releases. It can be just anything about your organization that might be interesting in terms of response or hazardous planning or anything like that. With that being said, for the next couple of CERC meetings, we're hoping that we will have some volunteers from these agencies because we do want to know more. This time we had PHMSA and we had ADPH present, and we would love to hear from other entities like the Geological Survey of Alabama, maybe, or Alabama Forestry Commission, Alabama Fire College. There's Alabama Oil and Gas Board. There's a lot of you here that we would love to hear from. So if you have something that you wouldn't mind presenting for the next meeting, please reach out to me or Grady or Caleb at any time to discuss that because we would love to hear more from your organization.
Thank you, Beth. And she makes an excellent point. The more we hear from you, the more the room as a whole benefits, but two, the more that the state is aware of anything going on. And we are a team. I think, a lot of people who maybe are not in our, maybe are not in our job line, they don't realize that we do work together a lot more than they think they do. Anyone else?
Hey, Caleb, I'll just wrap up by saying, as always, we do appreciate everyone attending the meeting, particularly when we have a busy day like we've had so far. I know several agencies have been pulled away, or at least initially pulled away, for the SCG call that was held regarding the weather. I know a lot of counties are being affected, so we do appreciate your time and coming in and joining us for a little while today.
Absolutely. And I concur with both Beth and Grady that this, we do appreciate everyone who's on the call joining. Hopefully you all got some good information out of it that you can take back to your agencies and your constituents. And with that, we will sign off, and we appreciate everyone joining, and we hope to see you all again at the next meeting here later this year. Thank you guys, and you can now drop off.